one of the most prolific interviewers, producers, writers. He's really the jack of all trades. He started a film company. He distributed films. We're with Julian Schlossberg, who has just written a new book. Julian, what did you leave out of this book?
I left it out, so I don't want to say. That's the purpose. I wouldn't say what I left out. But yeah, I did have to fire a couple of people, which was very hard for me to do. I don't like to fire anyone, especially that I've hired. But no, by and large, there were some people who behaved badly. As it doesn't matter if you're in show business or selling lamps. There are people who sometimes behave badly, and so I left that out. Somebody wrote about my first book, and I was so thrilled about it. They said he's never mean-spirited, but he's dishy. And I like that.
I think you have to be dishy if you're an interviewer.
Well, I think if you're going to, certainly if you write a book, people don't want to just hear everybody's great, you know. So in the book, I write about certain people and who I just wasn't able to work with, even though they wanted to work with me. So that was kind of nice that I didn't have to work with them. You know, you get a feeling when you're a producer, when you start meeting people you've never worked with, that this may not be a good combination. This may not be a good idea. And so what I did when that happens, I walk. I just do, even if it's someone famous.
It's a chemistry check.
It's so important. It is even in our interview now. I would do an interview with you any time because I know that you care and that you know your subject, and that's important. I mean, you also, I think you learn pretty fast to size people up, even though sometimes it takes a while to get to know them because some people are shyer than others. I've never had that problem.
By the way, I didn't mean to out your play and Jeremy Irons, but I had a friend tell me that Raul Esparza was watching The Queen of Versailles, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if Julian's play is coming up.
No, not yet. That was okay. I never mind those things. I don't think I've ever been asked a question that bothered me because most people are reasonably respectful about who you are or what you've done. And I guess after you do 60, 65 producing projects, eventually you're going to meet almost everyone and hope that they'll treat you the way you want to be treated.
Well, when I'm interviewing, I always tell people, all right, I have a controversial question. Do we mind if I ask it? I warn before I do it.
Well, I think that's a very important thing to do, you know. I mean, I remember hearing some interviewers saying, I have to ask you this question about your brother who overdosed. And you say, why do you have to ask that question? Why do you think you have to ask that question? You don't, you know. But what I do with anybody who I know is somewhat controversial, I'll say to them, if there's anything that I ask you that you don't want to answer, just say next question. Just 2 words, next question, and we'll drop it.
I interviewed Tim Daly, and there was a big controversy about time because she was supposed to do Doubt. And there was no way I was asking that question. And no, but he said to me before the interview, if you want to ask me about my family, you can. And I was like, but I still stayed away from, yeah, because it wasn't relevant to what I was doing.
Tell me, did he talk about James, his father?
Yes, he wanted to talk about his family and how they all got into everything.
Because I saw his father in a very interesting play called The White House Story. And it was a play with 3 actors, James Daly, the female lead was Helen Hayes, and the younger man was a kid named Gene Wilder. It's called The White House Story. Look it up.
Oh, I'm so sorry I missed this. I was a huge Gene Wilder
You
fan.
were probably not born yet.
I love Gene Wilder. Now, you had Renee Taylor and Elaine May here. Can you give me short stories about them that are dearest to your heart about each of those?
Well, with Renee, I was producing my first play, It Had to Be You. And she had come to me, having done the radio show with Joe Bologna, and said, do you listen to our new play? I said, sure. So I went and listened to it, and Joe said, "I want to bring my mother." I said, "Can I bring my mother?" He said, "Sure." And so we did. We heard the play read, and laughed my head off. But more importantly, the mothers laughed their heads off. And Renee said, "So you want to do it?" I said, "Renee, I've never produced a play in my life." She said, "So what? How hard can it be? Just do it." And I did it. That's what happened.
And so that was your first play. What was your second play?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm not sure. You remember your first often in everything. I'm not sure what my second play was. My first movie was 10 from Your Show of Shows. I had grown up with Sid Caesar and Imogene Coca and their great comedy. And I decided to find out if those shows existed. And they did. Max Liebman, who had produced it, I looked his name up in the telephone book, and he had an office, and he answered the door, and I said, "Mr. Liebman, do you happen to have any kinescopes of Your Show of Shows?" "Follow me, young man, follow me." And I walked down a hallway, and he opens the closet, and he says, "There's 156 90-minute kinescopes." And that's how it...
And let me guess, you were having a major little happy heart attack over it.
Nothing little. Everything was major. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. But the hardest part was to figure out what 10 sketches you wanted to use for the movie. Kind of 156 90-minute shows. So.
Oh, but couldn't you have part 2, part 3, part 4?
No. I see. No. In those days, people didn't want to pay money to see something that had been on television. So you knew, as it was crazy that I did it. But I did it, and I was glad. Now, if you said, "What's your second movie?" I don't know. Oh, wait a second. You can, but wait, it's right here. I can do it right here. Let's see. Oh, no, it's in alphabetical order. But the second movie would be No Nukes. No Nukes, yeah.
That was a really good film to do.
Yeah, that was a wonderful movie. And that's the only movie to this day that Bruce Springsteen ever made. So that was something. Yeah, it was Bruce Springsteen and Jackson Browne and James Taylor and Carly Simon and, oh my God, Crosby, Stills and Nash. It was terrific, just terrific.
It had almost all of my favorite bands at that time.
Mel Brooks pronounced me, when he would see me, instead of saying Julian Schlossberg, he would go, "Schlossberg," as if that was my first and second name. I was playing the producers at the Fine Arts. I launched that movie, and I was on my way out of town. I had a big valise. "Where you going, Schlossberg?" I said, "Well, I'm going to Chicago." He goes, "Chicago? It's double Newark." I mean, to be able to be that quick is just unbelievable to me. And that's what Mike Nichols was. That's what Elaine May is. I mean, it's to be surrounded by that kind of talent, you just never stop thinking, is this possible? That I'm having dinner? I'm having lunch? They're in my home? It's never stops. Never stops. Never, after 60 some odd years of doing this.
Is there a way that we can see you do a play with Elaine May and Renee Taylor together?
Oh my God! You know what would be that great play? What was the play?
And Miss Reardon drinks a little.
No, Arsenic and Olay. That would be great. That's a good idea. Well, you got 2%.
I actually, I got to see Imogene Coca live before she passed away because I saw on the 20th. And Madeline Kahn, Imogene Coca, Kevin Kline, John Cullum. So I would love to see those two together. That would be like, that would be theater heaven.
Yeah, that would be theater heaven. It's true. Well, I thought Bullets Over Broadway was theater heaven for me. So to work with Susan Stroman, one of the finest human beings I've ever met, besides a major talent, and Woody Allen, who I produced almost all his plays.
And tell people why they should buy this book.
Because I need to go to camp.
We have been with the funniest man I know, Julian Schlossberg. Buy his book because I'm telling you, you will be laughing.